cards and pens here with Caitlin in the back. And she'll hand out the index cards and bring them up to the moderators for you all. Please write legibly. At the end of the 90 minutes at 7 p.m. we'll wrap up, and we will not hear closing statements. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so now we have some ground rules for the candidates. Okay. We insist upon decorum and professionalism as you are modeling behavior for students here on campus. To that end, we will prohibit candidates from making personal attacks, threats, or rude comments toward or about each other, anyone in the audience, or the moderators. Further, we ask that you please refrain from addressing each other or asking each other questions. Instead, make your remarks to the moderator. Speak one at a time and please wait to be addressed by the moderator. Please respect all time limits. You will be given a 30-second reminder to wrap up. The moderator will interrupt anyone who goes beyond his or her allotted time, and we will do our best to keep on topic, and we ask the candidates also to focus their responses on the questions asked. Lastly, for everyone in the room, please silence your cell phones. That's it, so let's get started. Okay, so we're going to hear introductions from each of the candidates for 3 minutes each, beginning with Dawn, then Rebecca, Tom, and Jonathan. Okay, so go right ahead, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. I appreciate your interest. There we go. You can turn on the on switch on the mics. So my name is Don Kerr, and I'm a write-in candidate for village trustee. I'm running together with the woman to my left, your right, Rebecca Rotzler, as a write-in candidate. And both Rebecca and I feature experience in elected office. I spent over 8 years on the Board of Education, including some years as president and vice president. Rebecca is a former deputy mayor. There are a lot of issues in this campaign, and one of them has been talked about a lot, the issue of consolidation, of possibly merging the town with the village. I think that particular issue seems to me to be less of import to the student population. So I hope we'll have time tonight to speak to some of the other issues. Some of the other issues like water and sewer. We have a wastewater plant that is at capacity. We have sidewalks which are in need of replacement. There's a big issue with affordability in New Paltz. And if you look at the numbers that come out from official sources, there are sections of the village which are the poorest areas in Ulster County. And there are areas in the town outside the village which are the opposite. So the issue of affordability and people being able to pay their bills and have living wages in the village of New Paltz is an issue that is not discussed as often as it might be. I think the thing that Rebecca and I offer the most is an idea of how to make things work when you're on a board of 5 or 7. You know, inevitably there'll be times when people are like this, when the issues have people at loggerheads. And that's when it's hard, and that's when experience counts. I think our current village board, as members of the board have said themselves in public, that they haven't conducted themselves in a way that they would wish at all times. And I think that's something that in office, my track record and Rebecca's track record speak well to that issue. I think I've been in situations where I've been at the table and people wanted to kill me. But we came to a positive resolution because that's what a trustee does. That's what you need to do. You need to find a way to rise above, get around, tunnel under. You need to find a way to get to yes. And that's what the village board needs right now. Not only on consolidation, but on a lot of other issues, on the basic issues of how you get through a meeting. They need to find a way to work with each other and to be budgeting rather than bickering. We need analysis over advocacy. We need some real impartial presentation to villagers of the facts of some of the issues we're facing. You know, I will quickly say I strongly believe that consolidation needs to come to a vote. I think we need to stop talking about it and make a decision. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Rebecca Rotzler, and as Don said, I am a former deputy mayor of the village of New Paltz. I have lived here for over 20 years, raised my son here, and I was also a student here, majoring in communication studies. While I was here as a student. I was also the president of Students for Free Tibet and a member of the honors program. In fact, I put together many of those tables and chairs in the Honor Center because it was within our first year of the program when I joined. Currently, I'm employed at Ulster BOCES here in New Paltz, working in public education, which was my goal in terms of attending school here, was to work something in the public sector, education being preference. I also have a lot of history in disaster relief. I'm enrolled with the Red Cross, so I get all the fun little texts whenever there's a storm coming or what have you. But with that, I kind of went a bit above and beyond my position with them. I traveled to Schoharie County, Greene County during Hurricane Irene and helped people with, you know, getting rid of mold, gutting houses, digging out basements. And when Hurricane Sandy hit, a coworker and I started an organization called Helping Hands of the Hudson Valley. For over 4 months, we traveled to Staten Island every weekend, and I'm really proud to say that a number of students stepped up, the drama club students, the non-secular student union students. The big challenge there was that we left the SUNY parking lot at 7 a.m. every Sunday. So for students to be able to pull themselves out of their bed at that hour, but we also parked at the lot to make it easy for everyone to commute with us. In terms of what I'd like to see while serving on the village board again, one of the things that has come to be realized since I served on the board was the Ulster County Loop Bus, which I'm sure many students here utilize. It's worked out wonderfully for the campus. It's a great partnership between the campus and the town. But I would like to see it expanded to Saturday services, not only for you, but also for the senior citizens at Woodland Pond and also to relieve traffic. Beyond that, I would also like to see more solar initiatives as emergency backups for one during the storms that I'm sure we're going to expect. And I'd also like to see municipal waste services, so we're not dealing with all these big garbage companies. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Tom Rocco. I'm a candidate for village trustee. I was to run as a member of a ticket with Roddy Serdar, but Roddy did not get enough petitions to be on the ballot, so he's running as a write-in. Unfortunately, he could also not be with us tonight. He called to say that he would do everything he could to be here, but he did not make it. I have no formal relationship with this campus, but I live only 300 feet away. I believe I'm the closest candidate to the campus. I see very much of students and faculty members as they come and go. I attend many activities here on campus. In addition, I've given much of my life to SUNY and to other colleges and universities. My entire adult life has been spent in the academy as a faculty member in political philosophy and ethics, and then as an administrator up to the positions of provost and president and university trustee. I guarantee you that I know how to work in teams. I know how to work in trying circumstances. I know how to budget. I know how to plan. I know how to implement. I know how to take into account information from experts and to use them. I know my own limitations. I know that as a philosopher, I am not a mechanical engineer. I'm not a hydrogeologist. I'm not an Arab language and literature philosopher. I am just a guy who knows how to work with a lot of other people, and I do that well. My intention as a trustee would be to plan in advance of problems, to plan in advance of difficulties. We now have a 19-year-old comprehensive plan. It is at least 9 years out of date. I chaired a citizens committee 3 years ago to help move the process of planning. We have not moved from that time till now. There are several aspects of the recommendations of the Comprehensive Planning Task Force that I chaired that would be directly relevant to you, including a safe streets, a complete streets program, including the loop bus, including affordable housing, and several other matters that I would hope to bring to fruition as a member of the board. Thank you.
I take this one here. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much. Jonathan Cohen. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. There was a couple of issues that I'd like to bring up. First, I want to introduce myself that I moved here about 16, 17 years ago with my wife and my children. At that time, we opened up the Groovy Blueberry, and it was a retail establishment that we were running as a retail establishment for at least 10 years. And then continuing with it, we then went into the wholesale business. And in 6 years, we've grown quite large. We sell to stores like Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom's, Lord & Taylor's. We just landed Burlington Coat Factory, 600 and almost 60 stores. And we can handle all these people, and we know how to plan with them. We know how to set up teams. We know how to bring us and them together to create and go forward. So we could manufacture for them. And incidentally, we're the type of business that we're so proud that we can employ so many SUNY students over the years. Presently, I think we have about 10 to 12 students locally. But we also employ dyers, local dyers, and also local manufacturers who cut and sew all our designs and bring to fruition all our manufacturing ideas. So actually, Groovy Blueberry is a made in the United States organization, institution. We're extraordinarily proud of that. We bring so many jobs, not only to the village of New Paltz, but to other people who live in this country. And as I say, we are very, very proud of that, especially in an environment where everything is imported. I like to bring that talent to the village board. I have to say that I've been doing this for 37 years, and always I have been successful. Why? Because I treat people, I treat my customers, just like I treat my suppliers with the golden rule. I treat my friends with the golden rule. I treat my children with the golden rule, and I will do the same to you. I will ensure that you will not have an abusive or an aggressive individual in office. I just want to say that the next part of I wanted to tell you that my motivation for running was because I had a very poor experience the first time I went to Village Hall, just out of nowhere. And so I thought, let me see what's going on. This was about 10 years ago, and Jason West was in office, and of course I was there, and there was a chairman of the planning board, and I just went just to see what's going on. And really, I hadn't voted for 20 years. I felt such apathy with our system, but coming to New Paltz, and in a small little village, I wanted to experience how much time do I have left?
That's it. You're out of time. So thank you each of the candidates. Now, we're going to move on to questions. Question number 1, and this is for each of the candidates. For the past year or two, it seems that the village and town boards have focused on the proposed consolidation of the two. And for background, the proposal is to merge the two New Paltzes. The SUNY campus is located in the village at the core of the larger town. Each has its own government, planning board, public works and highway superintendent, zoning laws, regulations, tax structure, etc. Consolidation would merge the two entities into one municipality with one government. Some argue that it would reduce costs and duplication, others say it won't. Some say it will make government more efficient and responsive, others disagree. It's really hotly contested. Consolidation takes money to do. There is money from New York State to consolidate the two. A referendum may be put to voters this November. So the question is, How do you stand on consolidation of the village and the town of New Paltz, and why? So we'll start with Jonathan, and then go loop around this way.
You know, I just wanted to say, I wanted to read this. I wanted to just make it clear that like many communities in New York State and neighboring states, the town and village of New Paltz are considering a new approach to delivering high quality or higher quality services to their residents. Many in the community believe that the division of the community into town and village is anachronistic and costly, and that it should be eliminated. And of course, others point to the unique roles played by each in the community's history in its present form and refer to the present status quo. But aside from that, let me tell you my opinion. My opinion is that I do not believe that we have the luxury to hold on to a romantic image of a separate village and a separate town. I believe that we must take a step forward, and by not taking a step forward, we're actually going backwards. I believe that the ability to consolidate and create one entity would actually foster so much greater efficiency and productivity that I believe it would certainly reduce our taxes and the burden upon our taxpayers. I think that is the crux of the situation. I just wanted to make mention that, of course, we all understand what our heating bills are, our health insurance costs are, our food bills are, our costs to run our automobiles, and so on and so forth. But just to finish off, I certainly support consolidation. I certainly support the ability to bring the referendum to the people and allow them to make the decision and not our politicians. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Don?
I think also that consolidation should come up for a vote. I think the discussion right now is a vote in November. And I think we need to stop talking about this and come to a decision as a community. I think the challenge between now and then is to make the numbers work and make the numbers understandable. We've had a lot of claims made and a lot of numbers thrown out there. We're going to get $1 million. We're going to save $1.6 million a year. And when a consultant was hired by the village just recently, I think they're called CGR consultants or CGR associates, the expert in consolidation who was hired by the village said, you don't do consolidation to save money. The original report done by a local company, Fairweather Consulting, said there's not going to be savings as far as financial savings to the town and village from the consolidation. Yet, the advocates are throwing out, we're going to get $1 million, we're going to save $1.6 million, and many of those numbers have been withdrawn. So I'm not against consolidation, I'm for a vote, but I am very much in favor of arithmetic. And right now, the arithmetic doesn't add up. The statements that have been made about savings and benefits, there's no municipality that has received $1 million from the state. And that process is unclear. And there may be a pot of up to $1 million, but that's to be divided among municipalities. So we need to get the arithmetic straight. Then we'll vote.
I also am in favor of seeing it on the ballot as a referendum in November, which is exactly what the firm that Don just mentioned has been hired to do. They are not doing another study. They've made that perfectly clear. It's already been studied several times, and now it's a matter of them to basically sit down and take the information that has already been gathered and create a proposal that we all will vote on. One of the things that I'm concerned about in terms of serving on the village board is keeping an eye on the timelines. The law, it's about a 40-page law issued by Governor Cuomo's office, which strictly outlines time limits where it has to be put up for a public hearing, time limits where the information has to be made public prior to election day. And then also one of the things that I'm really concerned about is the time frame for implementing should it pass. Because our zoning laws, our codes, all have to be merged, and we would have 2 years to do that. And we really need people at the board who are familiar with this work, who are able to do it in a timely manner, as per state guidelines.
I am on the planning board right now. I believe I would bring some significant experience to rationalizing the planning and zoning activities of the town and the village. I think that consolidation in some form would certainly help that. Would consolidation save money? It is highly likely, even according to CGR, the Center for Government Research, that there would be some savings. They estimate that in most of the successful merger consolidations that they have participated in, there have been savings of 2 to 5%. They emphasize something else, however, that a 2% savings now is like the miracle of compound interest. You save on top of that 2% every year going into the future. So remember, 2% is not much, but it's something, and it becomes a lot over a long period of time. The Comprehensive Plan Task Force that I chaired had a question that asked, would the New Paltz community be better served with one governing body rather than village and town administration as now? Of the approximately 350 responses we received, 182 said yes, 33 said no, the rest were neutral.
Okay. I just want to remind the audience that we have, that Caitlin, sitting in the back row, has index cards. If you have questions, please jot them down and she will collect them. So for the last 15 minutes of our debate, we will entertain questions from the audience. Okay? Caitlin? All right, so, oh, I'm sorry, John, go ahead, Jonathan, go ahead. No, you started us off.
I started, yeah.
Right. So now I have a question as a follow-up for Mr. Kerr. So you said, I believe it was in the Woodland Pond debate, that the village is eligible now for grants that wouldn't be available if it merged with the town. So if you can elaborate on that, how much money is at stake and for what types of projects?
Well, I would defer to my running mate, Rebecca, has a little bit more familiarity with the specific grants. I know the criteria for some grants in the village are on income level. And there are a number of grants which we qualify for on a repeat basis, specifically because portions of our village are so poor. And the concern is, when you merge everything together, the average income goes up, and we no longer qualify for some of those income-based grants. It's something that is important to understand, because with the claims of savings from consolidation, it's also important to understand there's going to be costs to consolidation. And that's why I think that the people in this community, we need a proposal, a referendum, and an educational process which has the pros and the cons, the costs and the benefits. And right now we're really just seeing one side of the coin. But specifically the grants are income related, and it refers to the point I made earlier, that there are pockets in this village, and it's pockets outside of SUNY, that qualify as some of the poorest areas and neighborhoods in Ulster County. And we have benefit from that horrible circumstance in the form of some of our grants.
Did you want to follow up?
Sure.
You want to expand on that?
Just quickly, one grant that would be at risk is a $600,000 USDA grant that's a part of our water sewer system, which would be at jeopardy. Just to back up what Don was saying, the village of New Paltz is, at the last census, showed to be at 42% of the population below poverty level, which of course includes small families, but it also does have some factor with students living within the village, but it is still something that needs to be looked at because that does qualify us for grants.
Does that include the SUNY population?
Yes.
But it's not limited to.
Right.
Anybody else wanted to comment on that, the grants and how much is at stake?
I really have no idea, but what I do know is that we certainly will be receiving $1 million from the state if we do consolidate, which will probably ameliorate all the money or grants that we potentially could be receiving.
Okay, now,
I might just make a very brief comment. I did ask someone who is a developer in town who cited the same information about the loss of some potential grants, not actual grants. He said that many of the grants that we might lose are no longer being funded at this time, but that they might be again in the future, and we would put ourselves in jeopardy in the future by having a better off community than we have now. I think I would take my chances on having a better off community than we have now.
Okay, so question number 3, for each candidate. Okay. In the last candidates debate at Woodland Pond, several of you brought up the need to address the affordability of the village to attract businesses and young families to this community. How, specifically, do you plan to do this? Please outline specific initiatives you would undertake if elected and what outcomes we might expect from them. Rebecca?
Sure. When I was on the village board 6 years ago, one of the projects that I took on was the affordable housing law. A group of us representing different parts of the community, including a senior citizen, a emergency services volunteer, etc., gathered together and basically looked at a lot of different laws. I worked closely with the Pace University Land Use Law Center, and one of the things that they do is share the information from other municipalities. So we were able to look at a lot of different laws within New York State and sort of pick and choose what we felt would work for New Paltz. For example, having the fire department being on a priority list in terms of any new affordable housing. And that's something that I would want to work on again. I would like to be the liaison to the board, the Affordable Housing Board, and also really look a lot at getting a lot of the positions filled and just have it be a more active process that people in the community know about.
Tom?
I am not an expert in affordable housing, but again, as I said before, I know how to work with people who are experts. So I would want to both become more familiar with the legislation. I know that there is an affordable housing law. I know that the citizens of the village said in the survey that I mentioned already that they favor affordable housing in appropriate zoning districts in the village. So I would want to learn more. I would want to work more with people who are knowledgeable, and I would like to support any development. And that includes, by the way, a more dense population in appropriate zoning areas.
Yeah, I definitely encourage affordable housing, and if we were to build it, I certainly would encourage that as well, as long as it's done fairly and equitably. I would also, I would say that we actually have been encouraging construction here in the village. A lot of houses have been coming up, and I know that there's a lot more competition, and I think that's a very good thing, and competition is really what keeps things in check. I mean, we have 20 pizza shops and keeps the prices level. I also believe that, getting back to the issue of consolidation will be an incredible effort if we can accomplish it to reduce costs and costs of services in the village. So as I said, we can run our government more efficiently and effectively. In doing so, reduce taxes, and then in doing so, reduce the burden on our renters and our homeowners. I know I'm the landlord and I own a few houses. If I had the ability, if let's say my homes went down in cost as far as tax-wise, if they went down by $100 a month, immediately I would reduce my renters' rent by $100 a month. And the reason why is because I believe in fast nickels and slow dimes. I believe that if you want to sell, if you want to keep your rooms full, keep them cheaper and give them better services. And that's part of competition. Thank you very much.
Well, I think when it comes to increasing the standard of living, we've spoken about affordable housing, and I think that's a role that is difficult for a village board to achieve directly by aid programs. But what we can do is try to slow the growth of the cost of living here and find some ways to generate income here that we're not looking at now that might retard the growth in taxes or actually bring them down. A couple of examples. I got together a group known as the New Paltz Ad Hoc Tax Alliance. And we worked to put a plan in place that will install infrastructure, water and sewer, on the road where the high school is. It's zoned for business, but there's no water and sewer there, so no business wants to locate there. We're going to have that installed, and that's part of an effort that I led. I think small and locally owned businesses in this town who employ other people in this village, they don't always have as easy a time as they might. And I would point to the wine store, which had such a hard time moving across one end of a parking lot to another. And a lot of time, a lot of money. I would point to a local cupcake vendor, which is having a bit of a hard time. I think helping local people who own businesses to do their business and employ people is another way to help do this. I think getting some sort of plan and advocating with the federal government to increase the occupancy at Woodland Pond would make that community stronger and our whole community stronger.
Okay, thank you. And so the previous question, which really focused on affordability, necessarily begs the question of granting a payment in lieu of taxes or pilot status to developers. Now, I'm speaking specifically of Wilmer Wright's proposed Park Point student housing development that would get that tax break. The tax burden in New Paltz is statistically one of the highest in the state. While Park Point is in the town of New Paltz, not the village, it's relevant because if consolidation does become a reality, it will affect everyone. What is your stance on Park Point specifically, and then in general, granting developers the pilot tax break? So we'll start with Tom, and then Jonathan, and loop around. Okay.
Well, as a former president of a state college, I cannot honestly say I am opposed to the very notion of pilots. I myself have been responsible for working to negotiate pilots for institutions. If there is a tax-exempt entity seeking the pilot, then there would have to be a legal reason for not awarding it. But that does not mean that a pilot doesn't have to be negotiated and negotiated hard by the municipalities in question. If there are costs that will be reasonably projected as incurred by the entity, by the municipality, those costs should be covered by the developer. So pilots are in themselves okay. Pilots may be objected to in legal terms, but you'd have to bring a legal case against that. But we should be able to negotiate and make sure that the costs to the municipalities are covered. I think that the building of the student housing here in SUNY is more than warranted. I would like to see a significant development of student housing here. Would relieve some of the pressure in the nearby village area.
I certainly think the project is a good project, although I do believe that they have to pay their fair share of taxes. I mean, as far as when I looked over the police budget, that they estimated that would happen. Let's see, the police budget would be, they estimate on the very, very, very low side, 10 million between the first and 20 years project, 10 million. In fact, Gene Galucci estimated 18 million, maybe even closer to 20 million. So I think we would be incurring expenses that would be put on the backs of the homeowners, and it would be actually pretty extensive. I know that when the project first opens up, they'll pay $1.5 million or whatever in taxes, the initial payment, and our taxes might go down slightly, but I believe after which the burden of all the expenses, as I say, fire, rescue, our fire, everything that we have to supply to them would actually, which would crush this village and town. So I don't think we could afford it, and I'm against it as far as giving them a pilot. Thank you.
Well, I think it's a great project as well. I think it's needed. A recent issue of the Oracle had a back and forth. I see Dr. Jerry Benjamin in the audience. Between he and I think they took our respective responses and cut them up and put them as if we were debating each other. And I think the bottom line of my opinion on that, my comments to the newspaper, I think it's a great project as long as they don't sleep on my couch. They've got to pay their taxes. And I think there is a savings from consolidation. It has been when a village and a town had their own police departments. So this 2% or more savings that is sometimes discussed, that's only when you lose a police department. In New Paltz, we only have one, so that's not going to be an area where we're going to save. And I think the notion that we would have a better community in terms of poverty just by combining the village and the town, that would bring the average up. Yeah, it would look better. But would it do anything for the people in the poor areas in the village? I mean, bringing the average up to make us, to make the numbers look better doesn't address poverty.
I definitely think it is a good project and a well-needed one. I would love to see, instead of more beautiful Victorian homes turned into basically boarding houses, are being cut up into apartment buildings, I'd much rather see more young families be able to come into the community. Affordability is definitely an issue, and by working on making our community more affordable, we could all together be here. And I would like to see expansion in other areas in the village as well. There's an area called a B3. It's the zone that goes from the Salvation Army out to the north end of the village. That needs to be changed in terms of zoning in order to make it more accessible for businesses. And I also worked with Don Kerr on the project to expand the water sewer out to the high school. In terms of the pilot, I think it really needs to be looked at very closely. Emergency services needs to be pulled in on the conversation. Their viewpoint is very important with any project that comes into the conversation, and very often they're neglected. But also the water sewer system is a huge part of the issue in terms of bringing in new housing. We're at capacity, and we need to worry about how we would go into the future with a new project.
Okay, thank you.
So this question is directed at all the candidates. Oftentimes when students seek housing in the village, they encounter subpar housing conditions, and this has been an initiative that was past boards have tried to address. If elected, what will you do to ensure the proper enforcement of building codes, specifically for student rental housing? And we'll start with John.
We have laws. We currently have, as you say, laws on the books. Our housing, we have inspections once a year by the village building inspector, and they do a pretty good job inspecting. If there are any issues, I know my experience, they let you know and you take care of it. The thing that troubles me is I'm worried about legislation which sidesteps our court system. Our legislative body should not overstep our ability to go to the court of law and go to a judge who's trained in mediation and can solve and remedy these problems in a professional manner. As I say, I appreciate our laws that are on the books. They really do work, but I would encourage any renters or students that have problems or issues to go to our school claims court. We have two wonderful judges, Jonathan Katz and James Bacon, who are very, very, very sympathetic to tenants' issues. And I believe our courts do work. I think it only costs a couple of bucks to take advantage of them. And as I say, I really am against legislating and creating laws that take away from that option. Thank you.
I think the most practical thing that the village could do is to return to twice-a-year inspections. I think, well, I was actually in conversation with former Mayor Knight on this subject, and I was very humbled and appreciative to know that he will be supporting Rebecca and myself in our write-in campaign. And his comment was, when you have a twice-a-year inspection, you're able to pick up the things that you might not be able to pick on a once-a-year. If you have a once-a-year inspection and people know it's coming, they have the ability to dress things up. But couple months later, you know, with neglect, things don't always keep in the fine shape that the inspector saw. I think it's a real issue. We don't want to lose any students. We had a horrible situation over in Poughkeepsie where a student home burned to the ground. And I think it's a moral responsibility and a commitment for anyone on the village board to make sure that our students are safe and are not living in rat traps. And I think rather than any dramatic new steps, I think we could have the inspections twice a year. We could have the inspections 3 times or 4 times a year. We don't need new laws. We don't need new legislation. We have the rules on the books. Let's just, if we're having issues, let's just crank it up a little bit. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. I think we have the infrastructure in place. We just got to use it.
Well, I am actually the only person up on this panel who is a renter in the village of New Paltz. So it is a great concern to me, just as a regular person. One of the things that I feel needs to get reinstated is the landlord-tenant relation committee. One of the members of that committee who was very active, who really kept it going, moved out of the village into the town and was no longer able to serve on the committee. We really need to get that up and running again. And the village board members are responsible as liaisons to different committees. A committee should not fall by the wayside just because one person moves out of town. The people on the village board are responsible for making sure these committees continue to work and function and give them the support that they need in order to do that. I also, there's so many areas where we can also expand and just improve situations. Municipal garbage services, instead of having all these various garbage companies coming through our streets. I cleaned up my backyard. When I moved into my apartment, the neighboring buildings were dumping all their garbage at our dumpster. I had my landlord putting a light that shines over the parking lot that instantly made a huge difference. And I also worked directly with our garbage company to make sure that the recycling is done on a regular basis.
Well, I agree that we have the legislation we need. I think that enforcement has been a problem. We have some excellent landlords here who are both good to their tenants and rigorous about violations that occur. We know who some of them are. There are some who are less rigorous and less good to their tenants. And if you walk around the village campaigning, as I have been doing, and Don and I agree, but we've been on streets we didn't know existed before, you will see some of the landlords who are not abiding by the rules. The laws should be enforced, and a twice-a-year inspection would not be at all out of the question. I also believe, by the way, that Park Point would provide better housing for a considerable number of people and would take some of the pressure off the housing that's nearby to the college. I think this would be of some assistance in providing better housing for students.
Okay, great. All right, so now we're going to, getting back, we've got some follow-up questions on the consolidation. So putting aside the question of financial savings or costs, consolidation has implications for how our government operates. So if you are pro-consolidation, based on your responses earlier, please identify the benefits in terms of government functioning and what is dysfunctional about the current system. And if you are against consolidation, please identify why the current system is superior and the drawbacks of consolidation. And our questioner says no waffling. You must either be for or against consolidation at this point. So we'll start it off with Don and go in this direction.
Well, I think it's not waffling to say that I think consolidation should come up for a vote. If it were up for a vote today, given the numbers that have been put out there and the case that's been made, I couldn't vote for it today. But we have till November. Let's see if people can do a better job. I think part of the issues in terms of the current structure are human issues. They're issues of individuals not being able to rise to the level they should as elected officials. I think there have been times, and there have been many times in the history of our community, where the village and the town worked well together. And I think it sometimes is a question of individuals rising above. I think one thing people need to think about when you come off the thruway and you're driving down Main Street, and you look at the part of Main Street which is up in the town, it looks like anywhere USA. You've got the Burger King across the McDonald's. You've got the strip malls. It could be in any state, in any county in the U.S. When you get to the village, something changes. Something changes. There's a unique quality. There's a unique atmosphere and feel and look and reality in the village. And I think whether consolidation happens or not, that needs to be maintained. I guess the concern is in a board of 7, a consolidated board of 7, the village might not have enough representation to really have any power, and that's a concern.
I won't make up my decision, won't make a decision until I see what is on the ballot in November. And I want to work toward getting whatever proposed on the ballot. One of the issues that I see in terms of our 2 separate governments as we currently have is a lack of cooperation, but also a big part of what falls through the cracks is the fact that many of the liaisons, which I strongly believe in those positions, when I was on the village board, I was liaison to the fire department, the rescue squad, and the police department. I was to their police commission. And making sure that these contracts go through, going to their meetings, the fire department, rescue squad meetings, answering any questions that they have, and then coming back to your board so that you can get these contracts passed quickly. That's one of the issues that we run into under our current system with both boards. And it really is a matter whether we have 2 boards or 1 board. It's a matter of the people elected really doing their jobs and doing their jobs well in order for us to have a cooperative process.
Well, I'm in favor of some form of cooperation, collaboration between the town and the village. There has to be a better way than we now have. It may be the case that the citizens are electing people who are not representing them well. I'm not sure of that. The citizens are electing the people now, and they'll be electing people later. I'm on the planning board, as I mentioned before. I have no doubt that planning and zoning could be more efficiently done between the town and the village than now. At the present time, people may not know where to go to have some project done, and I see no reason why we could not have a rational planning process that would affect all of the citizens of New Paltz rather than those in the town or the village. It may be that the northern or the eastern part of Main Street doesn't look as attractive as the village part of Main Street. I agree with that. But there could then be zoning that would be rationalized between a more intense business location and the less intense area in the village right now. Actually, that's not really what I want to say, but my time is up. But I'll get back to it later if I can.
To me, the biggest asset of consolidation would be to encourage communication between not only our government, but our residents as well. I mean, I can only imagine if we had 1 website to contend with, we would put so much more effort into making that website more user-friendly and give it the ability to communicate at a higher level village hall, town hall, would certainly benefit that communication as well. I believe that would definitely encourage more of a hand-in-glove operation. And you know, sharing one water system would certainly be a benefit to the town and to the village, because potentially we could grow our system and potentially raise more money, and hopefully it would be a better system for everybody, so that we could actually grow out into the town to people that don't want to use, you know, want to get off their wells and 10 seconds. Anyway, it would just be a much more sustainable type of as far as communications wise, and I think that would really be a benefit for One New Falls.
Okay. So, for all the candidates, the village board recently reduced the office of mayor to part-time and cut the salary accordingly. How do you feel about this specific move made during an election cycle and without debate or public discussion? And secondly, how much will having a part-time mayor affect the village board's ability to get its work done? We'll start with Rebecca.
I personally was not happy when I heard about it. It apparently was discussed at the very end of a meeting, very close to when the budget is being adopted. No one in the public had heard any discussion of this prior to hearing about it the day after the meeting, and a lot of people were very shocked. I personally feel that we do need a full-time mayor, and we need to stop playing around with that position. It's like over the years, the salary has gone up and down so many times, and it's not about the person who's in the office, it's about the position. We need a full-time mayor who is taking care of the day-to-day operations, just like we have a full-time supervisor. And I really think there needs to be an investigation into how this board, at the last minute of a meeting, was able to quickly come together to a decision without prior discussion. And there may have been some violation of open meeting laws, and I really think that's something that should get investigated and really brought to light.
Well, I agree that it was a kind of a startling outcome. I also believe that whether it was justified in the thinking of the other four members of the board, it would have been much better had there been a public discussion of it in advance. I can't attest to their thinking. I can only say that I deduce from their action that they were not satisfied that they were getting a full-time representative in the mayor's office. So I deduce that they thought they would be able to pay for what they're getting. That's a deduction that I'm drawing.
And do you feel that having a part-time mayor, how would it affect the village board's ability to get its work done?
It depends. If the mayor has been part-time and getting his work done until now, then perhaps it would be okay. I'm not sure. I wish that we had enough prior discussion for us to make a rational decision in public right now.
Jonathan?
Considering the economics of today, obviously when I ran for mayor 2 years ago, I advocated running as a volunteer because I felt very strongly that the position of mayor should be an example of what we all should be doing, and the best example should be coming from the top, from the leader. I felt for many, many years that we need a manager, a village manager, that could operate all village functions properly. A manager that has been educated, maybe has a master's degree in planning and municipal activities. I think that would help us. I think that would also help us to be more efficient and more productive. I think a figurehead mayor would be absolutely ample. I think what the village board had realized was really were not, they were trying to realize a full-time mayor, but the mayor was not really operating at that capacity. In fact, I had seen him a true value many days working as his painter's job, so, you know, I don't know if he was really doing a full-time position. Thank you.
John?
Well, I'd like to keep this discussion to process. The position of mayor in the village of New Paltz is an institution. And I was at that meeting, and there was no debate. There was no debate. Everyone knew exactly what they were going to say before they opened their mouth and before the next person opened their mouth. So the process of having your discussions and having your discussions in the open light, that's not what I saw. I saw a decision being made for personal reasons, and I saw the statements being made to justify that decision were personal in nature. This village has a bunch of voters and residents who have a right to decide whether the institution of mayor is part-time or full-time. That's our right. And I think the reality, we have had people who have drawn part-time pay in the mayor's job before, but they've done full-time work. And one of them, I referenced Mayor Nyquist before. He took part-time pay because he could afford to take the part-time pay. Jonathan, I appreciate the blessings you've had tonight.
I thought we were speaking
Please
to
don't.
it
Yeah, please don't.
As a volunteer. I think there's a lot of insensitivity to the issue of affordability in this discussion today. With a full-time mayor position at a full-time salary, anyone can be mayor if they're qualified. You cut it to 22 grand a year, you really limit the pool, and that offends me.
Okay. We have kind of a follow-up question from the audience. There's the perception that the village board is engaged in a lot of petty and personal vendettas. How would you be able to change that perception? And if we could start with Tom?
Change the perception, I hope, by changing some of the activity. I have worked in highly contentious circumstances with some frequency and with great success. I would hope I bring my leadership training and development, my teamwork, my understanding of what it is to hold different positions and to still act on behalf of the organization or entity that you represent. So I look to be who I am and who I've been as a dean. I was a dean for more than 20 years. You can imagine how much conflict and how many differences of opinion and how many slings and arrows were slung around tables during that time. And I learned a great deal from my colleagues, from my faculty members, and I learned how to respect them and still to get things done. Many things done.
Jonathan?
You know, I kind of have to take umbrage with some of the comments that are being made today. First of all, I wanted to say there has been some things mentioned in past debates, certain individuals putting down consolidation, saying that the village budget has decreased. I just want to mention that the village budget has increased and will increase by 2.5–3% this year. So that was a misstatement. I just want to be clear. I want to be clear also that some person, which I will not name names, will also mention that the town board receives health insurance. I want to mention to you, the truth is the town board does not receive health insurance. And you wouldn't have to worry about paying health insurance to town board members if the town and the village consolidated there are 9 members or 7 members or whatever it might be. You know, this issue of consolidation, I just want to say very, very quickly, there are 2 people here that support Jason West. And basically the elephant in the room is that if these 2 individuals win the election, Jason West will again resume his power of arrogance.
All right.
And that's what I have to say that. I can say that.
Okay, I will remind you of our ground rules, please.
Well, the ground rules is I could just quote Ariana Bosco in the New Paltz Times, which I don't mind doing it, saying Jason West is not a
Time's
leader.
up. I'm sorry. We'll move
Well, I
on.
had my time.
No.
Excuse me,
No,
I
that's
had
fine.
my time, And I think it's
No,
rude
the
that
time
we
is
have a
up.
problem, we have an abusive, aggressive mayor. in
Stop
this
right
town.
there, please.
I will not stop. I will
Jonathan,
not
please
stop.
stop.
I will not
No.
stop, and I think that these people in this
Stop,
room
now we're going
have to
to-
know that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Do what you want. I can speak. And I will not be intimidated. I'm sorry, I will not be. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to let you know.
This isn't
When
counting
I
as
run,
time.
it doesn't matter whether I win or lose. I like to speak what I have to say, and I don't appreciate it. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's okay, ma'am. I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm not the type that is intimidated or will be quiet or shut down.
We are going to
Thank
continue
you.
the debate.
Okay.
Let me know when I can proceed.
Please.
Just very briefly, I think the biggest way to get past the bickering and the infighting on the village board is to conclude the issue of consolidation. It's just my observation that people want it so bad. They want it so bad that it's taking some of the decorum out of the process. So I think getting to the end of that process and having a vote would be good on a lot of levels. I did misspeak in a previous forum, and when that was brought to my attention, I immediately retracted the statement. A member of the town board contacted me, and I apologize for the error. I was misinformed on that about health care for the town trustees. Apologize for that. To clarify, the mayor's proposed budget, the budget that was proposed to the village board, had a 1% decrease in taxes. By the action of the village trustees in hiring CGR, took a 1% decrease and brought it to a 2% increase. Now, they promised us, the town board and the village board again and again promised us that tax money would not go to pay for consolidation. It would come from the state. And they have some hopes that if they meet certain criteria, they'll get some of this money back. But right now it's in the budget, and that's what took our decrease and made an increase. This single-minded, no-holds-barred drive toward consolidation. Now it's cost us.
Okay. I think in terms of the issue of bickering, et cetera, that takes place, my 4 years of service as a village board member and deputy mayor, for anyone who was around at that time, is proof enough why I should be reelected to the position. We had many meetings that were very contentious, rooms full of people showing up at capacity. One time was over the discussion of the mayor's salary, and the meeting was so efficient. I ran the meeting, by the way. It was so efficient. I went around the room one by one. Every single person who attended had the opportunity to speak, and everyone did so in a very respectful manner. It's about being adult enough and not take anything personal. You are a public servant. It's not about your personality. It's about the office you are elected to uphold, and I have already proven that I can do that. Thank you.
So this question again is for all the candidates, and it's combining a question from the audience and a question that I had prepared. How would you like to coordinate with the Student Association more effectively through institutions like the Town Gown? And more generally, in your view, what is the role of the SUNY Paltz students in local government? And we'll start with John.
Okay, we'll keep it cool. Keep it cool. Since I moved here, I always encourage the students to take advantage of our village recreational facilities.